Come on, Shmelia, you can do this. Let's lay the marathon. Let's go. Jacob is a special case, as he imprinted on it by accident, and that's why he's in love with it, but I'll get to that later. There are others that come to witness that Renesmee grows and is therefore not a child vampire, which is against the law, when the Volturi arrive to destroy the Cullen clan. It communicates best by touching someone's face, as I'm about to show you. Do you mind if Renesmee tells you about it herself? I asked Carmen. I was still too stressed to speak above a whisper. She has a gift for explaining things. Carmen was still smiling at Renesmee. Do you speak, little one? Yes, Renesmee answered, in her trilling high soprano. All of Tanya's family flinched at the sound of her voice, except Carmen. But I can show you more than I can tell you. She placed her little dimpled hand on Carmen's cheek, and he snipped. What's Nessie showing her? He grumbled under his breath. Everything, Edward murmured. Another minute passed, and Renesmee dropped her hand from Carmen's face. She smiled winningly at the stunned vampire. She really is her daughter, isn't she? Carmen breathed, switching her wide topaz eyes to Edward's face. Such a vivid gift. It could only have come from a very gifted father. Do you believe what she showed you? Edward asked, his expression intense. Without a doubt, Carmen said simply. Snip. Renesmee frowned impatiently. Watch, please, she commanded. Eleazar, however you pronounce his name. He's not an important character anyway. She stretched her hand out to him, and then left a few inches between her fingers and his face, waiting. Eleazar eyed her suspiciously, and then glanced at Carmen for help. She nodded encouragingly. Eleazar took a deep breath, and then leaned closer until his forehead touched her hand again. Mini snip. Ah, he sighed when his eyes reopened a few minutes later. I see. Renesmee smiled at him. He hesitated, then smiled a slightly unwilling smile in response. Eleazar? Tanya asked. It's all true, Tanya. This is no immortal child. She's half human. Come, see for yourself. In the silence, Tanya took her turn standing warily before me, and then Kate, both showing shock as that first image hit them with Renesmee's touch. But then, just like Carmen and Eleazar, they seemed completely won over as soon as it was done. Breaking Dawn, PDF pages 648 to 651. Here's more. We replayed the scene of Renesmee's introduction to the Denali clan, the Denali coven, over a half a dozen times. First, for Peter and Charlotte, whom Alice and Jasper had sent our way without giving them any explanation at all. Like most people who know Alice, they trusted her instructions despite the lack of information. Snip. Curiosity had driven them to allow Renesmee's explanation, and that's in quotes, and that was it. Now, they were as committed to witnessing as Tanya's family. It wins over Aro, the leader of the Volturi. He wants to use it for his own purposes, but I bet that it could stage a coup, and I doubt he would stand in its way. Please don't make me get a quote for that. I think you get the picture. Reasons I think Renesmee is the Antichrist number 2. It's intelligence. It knows things without actually learning them. It's creepy how it just knows how to talk, walk, etc. It sees into people's souls, especially poor Jacob's. Its heart was beating, hers wasn't. Only a second had passed as I made these easy decisions. The trembling was getting tighter and faster. I coiled myself, preparing to spring on the blonde vampire and rip the murderous thing from her arms with my teeth. Rosalie cooed at the creature again, setting the empty metal bottle thing against the side and lifting the creature into the air to nuzzle her face against its cheek. Perfect. The new position was perfect for my strike. I leaned forward and felt the heat again begin to change. Meanwhile, the pull towards the killer grew. It was stronger than I'd ever felt it before, so strong it reminded me of an alpha's command, like it would crush me if I didn't obey. This time I wanted to obey. The murderer stared past Rosalie's shoulder at me, its gaze more focused than any newborn creature's gaze should be. Warm brown eyes, the color of milk chocolate, the exact same color that Bella's had been. My shaking jerked to a stop. Heat flooded through me, stronger than before, but it was a new kind of heat. Not a burning, it was a glowing. Like everything inside of me came undone as I stared at the tiny porcelain face of the half-vampire, half-human baby. All the lines that held me to my life were sliced apart in swift cuts, like clipping strings to a bunch of balloons. Everything that made me who I was, my love for the dead girl upstairs, my love for my father, my loyalty to my new pack, the love for my other brothers, my hatred for my enemies, my home, my name, myself, all disconnected from me in that second. Snip, 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 and floated away into space. I was not drifting. A new string held me where I was. Not one string, but a million, not strings, but steel cables. A million steel cables all tying me to one thing, to the very center of the universe. I could see now how the universe swirled around this one point. I'd never seen the symmetry of the universe before, but now it was plain. The gravity of the earth no longer tied me to the place where I stood. It was the baby girl in the blonde vampire's arms that held me there now. That's me. Breaking Dawn PDF, pages 408 to 410. This is a scene that got me. And it's not only because of the fact that Jacob imprinted on a newborn baby, which is gross, to put it nicely, but also the way it looked at him right before it happened. It was like it said, "You're mine now, bitch." And he completely unraveled. It also becomes very possessive of him later. So I have a little doubt that it's controlling the strings of that relationship. At 3 months old, Renesmee could have been a big 1-year-old or a small 2-year-old. She wasn't shaped exactly like a toddler. She was leaner and more graceful. Her proportions were more even like an adult's. Convenient. Her bronze ringlets hung to her waist. I couldn't bear to cut them, even if Alice would have allowed it. Renesmee could speak with flawless grammar and articulation, but she rarely bothered, preferring to simply show people what she wanted. She could not only walk, but run and dance. She could even read. I'd been reading Tennyson to her one night, because the flow and rhythm of his poetry seemed restful. I had to search constantly for new material. Renesmee didn't like repetition in her bedtime stories as other children supposedly did, and she had no patience for picture books. She reached up to touch my cheek, the image in her mind, one of us, only with her holding the book. I gave it to her, smiling. "There is sweet music here," she read without hesitation, "that softer falls than petals blown from roses on the black grass, or night dews on still waters between walls of shadowy granite in a gleaming pass." My hand was robotic as I took the book back. "If you read, how will you fall asleep?" I asked in a voice that barely escaped shaking. Breaking Dawn PDF, pages 587 to 588. At 3 months, it's reading Tennyson. With, might I add, flawless articulation. The fuck? What? Why? Meyer, why? Okay, I know the answer to that. She dreamed of her perfect child. But still, as much as the woman admires her creation, the hellspawn still flat out gives me the creeps.